Welcome to the Mujeres Create podcast. I'm Jessie, your host, and we're here to celebrate your limitless creative power. It's time to awaken your magic and manifest your wildest dreams. Join us for this next conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mujeres Create. Today, I'm here with Xiomara Gallego-Bernard. Xiomara is a wellness advocate. Last summer, she launched and published her award-winning children's book, Tomás Returns to School. And this summer, she's getting ready to launch her second children's book, Tomás Goes to Oliver's House. And she's here to tell us all about that journey as a parent to a highly sensitive child and how that shaped this journey that she's on and everything that she has uncovered from a creative standpoint. I'm so happy to have you here, Xiomara. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share more about the book and the bigger purpose in the story and how perhaps it can help another family on their journey in navigating all of the emotional ups and downs that our children may face at times.
Thank you. CEO audiences, I'm sure, want to know more about you. Tell us about Xiomara.
My story begins in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born and raised in a proud Colombian and Puerto Rican household. My father is from Colombia. My mother is from Puerto Rico. And they were just hardworking parents, hardworking people. I remember my dad, from what I can remember, always had two jobs. My mom put herself through school so that she can become a teacher. And I remember those journeys with her to the Bronx and staying with her. I guess she would go on the weekends to school when she had the time. She would bring us with her. So we would take the subway to the Bronx, Hostos Community College.
Yes.
And she worked hard and she got her degree and she became a teacher. So I saw that from the start, the hard work ethic and never giving up hope for a better life. And that's what they came here for, to provide a better life for us, for themselves. But when they decided to raise a family, for us so that we can move ahead in our life. When I was 1.5, I underwent open heart surgery to repair a congenital condition known as atrial septal defect.
Wow.
With a 50-50 chance of survival. It was a life-altering moment, one that I was too young to understand, but that I know left a lasting impact on my family. And as a parent now, I can't even begin to imagine what it must have been like for my parents and my sister. And I get emotional talking about it because I have my little ones now. And not knowing if your child is going to survive is really, really something that I now appreciate every little moment with my children because of that. But I'm here, thankfully, and because of that challenge early on in life and where I grew up, and I was raised in Williamsburg, which is different today than when I grew up there, right?
Absolutely.
Now it's trendy, all the shops.
Yes.
When I grew up there, it was very different.
Yeah.
So having grown up in that neighborhood, which was a little tough, and dealing with the health, challenge early on in life, has made me live each day with a greater sense of purpose. And now I value time with my family. I value time with people that bring joy into my life. And that is just an amazing thing to be able to live with now understanding and truly finding my purpose through these books.
Yes.
And the message that I'm trying to set forth, especially for people in our culture, which may not understand sensitivity like they should.
Thank you for sharing, part of all this, background on your life and your parents. My parents were not born in the United States, but they immigrated. My dad immigrated in the 80s as a taxi driver. He was driving around Williamsburg. That was the area that he worked. And he tells me all about the struggles of that area, which is now obviously an affluent area in Brooklyn. But I can definitely identify with those experiences that you're sharing. Parents working multiple jobs, obviously limited time to be home with their children, us growing up kind of like on our own a lot of the times, and
Yes.
thinking about your condition as a newborn. I can just imagine, have parents dealing with that back in the 80s when you were born, and like not necessarily maybe not having the resources to do everything that needed to be done, right? So I definitely sympathize with everything that you just said. Before we dive into your experiences, can you explain what a highly sensitive personality trait is?
Again, it's a personality trait. It's not a medical condition. It's not a diagnosis or a disorder. When you're highly sensitive, you have an increased emotional sensitivity and stronger reactivity to internal and external stimuli. So what that means is loud noises, large crowds, transitions, changes in routine. All of those things can be very challenging for us. Lights, sounds, pain and hunger. We feel it in a different way, more intense. But we are extremely creative, super smart, empathetic. We can feel other people's energy. My son, who is highly sensitive, he is an incredible artist. Like, he has the ability to look at something and be able to draw it exactly how he sees it.
That's beautiful.
He is, when you're highly sensitive, you also perceive the world in a deeper way. You have deeper conversations with people. You ask thought-provoking questions. But if you don't understand that trait, it becomes very difficult to help your child or help yourself, if you are highly sensitive, to learn ways or implement strategies to help you manage those emotions, big emotions when they happen. And that's what happened with us, right? When my twins, I have twins, so I have 3 boys.
Yes.
I have a teenager now, and I have twins who are 8. And when they were 2 years old, I noticed that one of them was having a lot of meltdowns, crying a lot, fighting, just reacting to things on a daily basis. And it was consistent every single day. It would last for long periods of time. So obviously we were concerned, and we spoke to our pediatrician, friends, family. I have a friend who's a pediatrician also. But because he was meeting all of the milestones, he was doing everything that, there were no delays. He was doing everything that a 2-year-old should be doing. There was no need for testing or further evaluation. So we thought it was the terrible twos. Terrible twos, the child is testing you, showing their personality. But he turned 3. And then we were getting closer to 4. And it was still happening. And it was starting to now affect our family. Vacations were being cut short. Visiting family was starting to become a problem. Friends coming over. And so I knew that there was something that I needed to do. As a parent, you see your child going through something and you want to help them. So I dedicated myself. I said, I'm going to take the next few months to just try and learn everything I can about what's going on. So I was lucky enough there wasn't a lot of literature about sensitivity, which is another reason why I decided to write the book, especially in our culture. There was a need for that type of literature and conversation. So I found an amazing book that talked about this personality trait. And as soon as I opened that book, it was like that was the sign that I needed. Wow. Everything in there, the meltdowns, the fighting, the crying. There's even a test. So there was a test there to see if your child is highly sensitive. And I started to implement the strategies that were laid out in that book. And it didn't happen overnight, but I started to see progress. And now our family dynamic was changing. We were seeing that the work that we were putting in was starting to work. And the meltdown started to lessen I mean, they were still happening, but the amount of time that the meltdown would last. Or we knew that, if music was something that was triggering some form of response, maybe we lower the volume or we change the type of music that we were playing, because that also affected him, the type of music that we were playing. So those little things really helped us navigate and understand and now be the support system that he needed, or that I actually needed, right? Because now understanding that I'm highly sensitive, the tools that we were implementing with him, I was using myself.
That's beautiful. And, once you had an understanding of what was happening, I'm sure that the way that you and your husband and the household reacted to these, situations was so different because you understood that it was something specific that was happening, that it wasn't the terrible twos. Thank you so much for explaining that. I
Thank
think
you.
there's so many people that are maybe struggling with a situation, not just parents, but adults that have maybe dealt with this, like you, for example, and you didn't find out until you started doing this research that you're also highly sensitive. So I think it's extremely valuable to exchange these experiences. And, sometimes our biggest struggles become the way that we can create. One of the things that we talked a lot about as we're preparing for this conversation is the aspect of culture, right? You're from Colombia and Puerto Rico. I'm from the Dominican Republic. A lot of the times our communities are not necessarily having a lot of these conversations, especially when it comes to children. I think our community overall sometimes shies away
Yes.
from, when they have a child that may have a special need or in your case, a highly sensitive personality trait,
Right.
which is something that our community really doesn't, I guess the conversation is not really had. What were some of those early messages that, that may have kind of made it harder for you to exist as a person with high sensitivity, for people to understand your child as a high sensitive child? Tell us more about that from a cultural perspective.
Culturally, when I was younger, I remember those moments where I was overwhelmed, overstimulated, because as a Latina, right, our household was always loud and busy, and family was over, and we had parties, and the TV was always on, and the radio was always on, right? And that really affected me as a child, but because emotional health or mental health conversations were not happening, I had to kind of push all of that aside or hold it in. And I couldn't share that, right? Because we didn't have that safe space.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was very difficult. And, I was often labeled as spoiled or bratty, or I even had a nickname called mantequilla,
Butter.
right? They called me mantequilla, butter. And what happens with butter? It melts.
It melts.
So because I was having these reactions to certain things, they named me mantequilla, and I hated it. I hated that name, but obviously I couldn't express that. Especially in our culture, we are afraid to share what is happening in our family, and that's another thing that I had to kind of shift, right? What I learned when I was growing up, and I'm not mad at that because my parents, it was a different time,
Right.
but they were always fearful of what will this person think, or you can never share what's happening in your home, right? It had to be kept within that little space. And I had to shift from that mindset, right? And say, well, if I'm going through this, someone else may be going through this. And me having that voice and trusting that voice and sharing my journey can help someone else. And if it only helps one person, then that's a win.
What you just mentioned about our families tend to keep, the challenges, health challenges, mental health challenges, close to close into our circles, because they may feel shame, they may feel judgment from other people, los vecinos, just people. And now with social media, especially, it feels like people are only sharing part of their story, the happy times, right? It's extremely powerful when someone takes the initiative to share that journey. Can you share more about going back to your upbringing and dealing with these emotions that you didn't know you had this, personality trait, and you constantly had to deal with, if you were, like you said, dealing with a lot of noises in the home, a lot of people constantly coming over. I have 61st cousins, so I understand exactly what you're saying. There's always parties and barbecues and gatherings, and it's wonderful. I can imagine for a highly sensitive person how challenging it is to deal with this dynamic constantly while they're not understanding that they have this personality trait. Can you share more about those experiences for you as a Colombiana and Puerto Riqueña, and some of the ways that, sometimes we make it harder for people to understand what's going on with themselves?
So for me, when I was younger, it was, like I said, extremely challenging to deal with that. I remember one particular moment, and I'll share that. I had a family member who's amazing, and I love him to death. I love him to death. But for some reason, I had this fear of him. And I remember every time he would come to visit, I would hide.
Oh.
I would find a table or I would find a closet and I would just hide. And there was no, like, I think about it and I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe it was his voice. He had a strong voice. And I think maybe the voice was what I was afraid or like really triggered some sort of feeling. But he was the most amazing man. He always brought me gifts, right? So looking back at it, but again, my family didn't understand it and they would like pull me out from under. Oh, come on, get out, right?
Yeah.
Not understanding that maybe there was an easier way or a better way to support what I was going through in that moment. And yeah, so all throughout my childhood, I remember those little moments. And I'm not upset because I want to make sure that my parents are listening to this and they understand that I'm not judging. But it was a different time.
Yeah.
And so when I started, again, on this journey as an adult, I wanted to make sure, again, that I was being the support system that my son needed. And to make sure that he was never feeling the way that I felt when I was a little kid, that I felt alone at times, and just making sure that he knows that he can come to me, that I am the safe space with whatever emotion he's feeling. Because in our house, every emotion is validated. We honor every emotion. It may not be the best one at the moment, but he knows, all my kids know, that they can come to us with whatever they're feeling and we won't judge them. We will have a conversation and we'll work through it.
As I'm having this conversation, prepping for it, there's so many instances where I can think about how we kind of sometimes unconsciously force our children to say hello with a hug, with a kiss, tell our children, no sea odioso. In Dominicans, they're like, tú sí eres odioso, like you're not friendly. Or, like, why is my child so antisocial? They're not coming out, they're not sharing with us, they're not friendly with our tias and our tios, with our cousins. And sometimes unconsciously, we're like forcing them out of their comfort zone, which just amplifies the reactions and the sensitivity. So, this is a special call out to our beautiful Latino culture. We love the music, we love the gatherings. That's really at the core of our culture.
Yes.
But developing that awareness around, there may be people in this group that have different needs. It's okay if somebody wants to go home early. It's okay if somebody doesn't want to come to the party. It's okay if they're not, sparking conversation. All of those things are okay, And one thing I can think about is, like, you mentioned mantequilla, which was a name that you were called. The name calling in our communities, and for all Latin American countries, there's different ways we name call. Dominicans have a lot of names, delicado, odioso, all of these names that are not helpful.
Yes.
And so, like, a call out to our Latino community to just think about those things and, manage those, interactions differently and educate our older generations that may not be aware of, these things now. Educating them around these things is so important.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And also, again, the it's okay to not go to this party. It's okay to say, I can't make it this time. Making sure that you, again, are really supporting the person who is highly sensitive. And if you start at a young age, it will help them tremendously throughout their life, because now they're learning the tools, the foundations of what they can do, what they can implement at a young age, and will take them through, as they are a toddler, they are a teenager, adults, right? Even us, when they're parents, all of these things that they learned at a young age will now help them throughout their life. And as you say, it's okay to not attend the party. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to step outside if you're in a party and your child needs to leave for a few minutes. We've done that plenty of times where I'm like, well, let me just take him outside for a little while. We'll kind of rest, take a pause, and then we'll go back in. Or what we do also is prepare the child where we're going, what we're going to do, how long we're going to be there, who's going to be there. If you need to leave, you can tell me. Like, all of those things are part of the work that you have to do as a parent, as a caregiver, as someone who wants to be an ally for a highly sensitive person. All of those things require, you have to prepare. And I'll share, I don't know, we have time, but I'll share, we recently went to Disney, Universal. It's a big
sensory overload.
So, of course, I'm highly sensitive. You don't have to be highly sensitive, but I'm highly sensitive. I planned every single thing out from the moment we booked the flight to the moment that we were getting on that plane, when we landed. Sometimes it's overkill, but it's better to be over prepared than not prepared, especially when you are sensitive and have a highly sensitive child. Obviously, things will change, but you have to be prepared, and you have to prepare the child for what's coming. And that's been one of the reasons why we've been so successful on this journey, because we've put in the work.
Xio, I would love to know, you mentioned Dr. Elaine Aaron. Can you share like some of those other tools, the research that you did? I feel like when we're trying to figure out what's going on with us, with our children, the research can take you so far, and there's so many discoveries. What were some of those tools that were super helpful to you, in addition to the doctor's published book that obviously we can show, and this book has been updated, correct?
So, yes, it has. So this book, The Highly Sensitive Child, there's also obviously a version in Spanish. There's The Highly Sensitive Person, The Highly Sensitive Parent, and a documentary also. So there's a documentary called Sensitive, The Untold Story. And Alanis Morissette is actually in the documentary because she is highly sensitive. And again, she found out she was highly sensitive later on in life as well, not as a child. So she shares some of her experiences. This one is also very good. These two, they're a quick read, but super, super helpful, by James Williams.
What's the name of it? Understanding?
These are Understanding the Highly Sensitive Child and Supporting the Highly Sensitive Child, Making Sense of Meltdowns and Seeing an Overwhelming World Through Their Eyes. These were super, super helpful. And they're quick reads, and you can just get them on Amazon, I think.
There's an assessment that you can take to understand if either you as an adult or your child or someone within your space has, this personality trait.
The test has been updated since I started doing my research, because now there's more research, because there are more people out there who are now understanding and saying, well, yeah, I'm highly sensitive. So now there's more research and the test has been updated. So definitely, if you think that you may be highly sensitive or you're parenting a highly sensitive child, I do want to say that if you think that there's something else happening with your child, definitely speak to a medical professional that can kind of guide you on next steps. What I'm sharing today is based on my experience and understanding that it is a highly sensitive trait. So the tools, the strategies that we use, I just want to share a few of those specifically what they were. So art was really, really helpful. Coloring, drawing, creating a quiet corner, a calm corner
Love that.
in your child's room or somewhere in your apartment, whatever, a box with little toys and sensory toys. Those helped. My son has this blanket that he loves, that he carries everywhere. So a heavy blanket is sometimes very comforting for a child. What else? Those type of things were what helped us along our journey. So a calm corner, drawing, art, taking time out with the child, just some quiet time away from the siblings, if they have siblings, to just kind of wind down and just connect
that individual
with them
time, right?
one-on-one. Therapy is okay. If you need therapy, we were a little bit hesitant at first. And then even while we were doing therapy, because it's play therapy, we were kind of like, well, he's playing with toys. How is this helping? But it helps. It helps tremendously. So let go of that old way of thinking about therapy. It helps.
And we didn't get too much into therapy, but in our community, we desperately need more people going to therapy and seeking therapy and, understanding there's like natural resistance because our communities are not necessarily, we haven't been taught about these things from a young age. This is something that is now kind of in the ecosystem but therapy is so important.
One more thing, back to school season is upon us, approaching. So I just want to add a few things that we have also done to help our child prepare for the back to school season. So if your child goes to school, right, not a homeschool child, that's a different way of managing this. But if he goes to an actual school, making sure that you are addressing this with anyone that's going to be in contact with your child, the teacher, the principal, the guidance counselor, whoever. So we've done that. Every year, we communicate with the teacher, the counselor about the highly sensitive trait. And again, it's not a diagnosis or a disorder, but they need to be aware of what it is in the event that, they have a meltdown in school or they feel nervous or anxious, so that they are prepared to handle it in the way that they should. So doing that, we've also scheduled tours of the school before school begins. So he will go in and meet his teacher in advance.
I love that.
Go into the classroom, see where he's going to sit so that he is prepared on that first day. So those are 2 tips that I highly recommend that you do. And you'd be surprised at how responsive and helpful the school will be, because sometimes that fear of sharing what is happening and will they be supportive, but you'll be very, very surprised at how supportive the school can be.
And in that way, teachers can be more alert and just understand that, this child may need a different type of support. They may have to step in at times when maybe other children are understanding what's going on. So that level of preparation and planning is so important. Thank you for sharing those tips. I definitely feel that there's no level of preparation that can be too much when you're kind of managing these type of situations at home. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Another reason why I wanted to write this book is I made it fun for the child, but also as a resource that the caregiver or parent can take and see, oh, well, these are some of the questions I can ask my child, or these are some of the games I can play with my child. These are some resources that I can take a look at, and read that book with your child and have the conversation. And again, create that safe space for your child to be able to say, well, I'm sensitive and that's okay. And that is a gift.
Yes.
Right? It's a gift to be able to have empathy. It's a gift to be able to feel people's emotions, right? So we have to change the narrative on sensitivity into something that is beautiful.
Yes. Thinking about that journey of writing this children's book, can you tell us about that moment that sparked this idea where you went from having this experience and doing all this research and obviously improving, your experiences with your son? What led you to say, I want to write a children's book about this?
I've always wanted to write a book. I actually had like a manuscript that I wrote years ago, but I never did anything. I never pursued it because life happens, right? And I just had it bottled up or in a drawer somewhere. But when I started seeing progress, I don't think there was a specific moment. It was just, I guess, a culmination of everything that we were doing that finally I began to realize, wow, this stuff is working. And it's taken a long time because, again, like I shared earlier, it wasn't overnight. We started researching and really implementing these things at home when he was about 3.5, 4. He's 8 now. So it's taken a while, but when I started to see progress, that's when I knew that I had to share this. And what better way to share than to take that dream of mine from so long ago and create something beautiful for the child, but also, again, like I said, as a resource for a parent, for a caregiver, for a teacher, for a medical professional, for anyone that is around sensitive children. And that's where just started writing, and here we are today.
I think it's just so beautiful when you go from having a challenge that you're trying to solve, and that leads you to a beautiful creative process, like writing a children's book. I'm a huge fan of children's books. I always keep a few kids' books in my coffee table because I always have a lot of visitors and kids. So I think it's just beautiful that you kind of took this and made it into a children's book series, because now you're launching your second book. Before we get into the second book, how did you incorporate your son into this journey, into the children, into his book, his story?
Actually, all my children were involved creatively in this process. So, each one of them had some input in the book.
Yeah.
But my twins especially, not just my highly sensitive child, my twins gave feedback. They would share what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought looked weird, the colors, the storyline, right? When I wrote it, I read it to them to make sure that it made sense to them. And they were really involved. In fact, their artwork, because I mentioned earlier, both of them are extremely great artists, like at drawing. And their artwork is featured in the first book, Tomás Returns to School and Tomás Regresa a la Escuela, as well as the second book now. And they're super proud of seeing their work in the book, but also the heart of the story. They know what the story is about, and they know that it can perhaps help another child or another family, and that to them is really powerful. So they understand the message. They know that it's inspired by one of them, and they're super excited about seeing that book. They always ask me, "Mama, are you gonna write another book? Are you writing a third book?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's on the way." But
like seeing their like drawings in the book just was so special, just to see their artwork displayed in the book. I also love the flares of culture that you sprinkle all through the book from your Puerto Rican and Colombian heritage. It was just so thoughtfully done. Really a fan of the work. And I'm so happy that this is leading you now to your second book, Tomás Goes to Oliver's House. Tell us about that second book.
the second book is, as you said, Tomás Goes to Oliver's House. Tomás va a la casa de Oliver. And this is following Tomás's journey as a highly sensitive child. He now In the first book, he met a little boy named Oliver. They become best friends. So now in the second book, he was invited to Oliver's house for a play date. And so he is a little nervous. He's excited, obviously, but a little nervous about the play date because this is the first time that he is going to be in a friend's house, going to a friend's house without his mom. So it's a big deal. So he has those type of emotions. He's happy, excited, but nervous. So obviously he works through those emotions before he gets to Oliver's house with his mom. But once he gets to Oliver's house, something else happens there that challenges him, and really he has to dig deep, right, to find his strength and the tools that he's learned. And his friend, Oliver, helps him manage that fear, manage what is happening. And we see that bond, that friendship. And that's what makes the story beautiful. And he receives, he gets that love from Oliver, and eventually, he has an amazing day.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think it's important that children also have experiences on their own, that they learn how to manage those situations on their own. Obviously, as they get older, right, as they kind of are interacting with their friends, obviously in school, there's got to be a way for them to learn how to regulate. So I just love that second part, and the elements of surprise that he finds in the house. What is it? I love that. I love that part.
There's something that happens in the house. I'm not going to share.
Okay.
But it is something that is, really big for him.
Yeah.
He's never experienced, so he has to work through it.
Yeah.
And he works through it on his own with his friend, as I mentioned. So it's really exciting to see the journey from the first book going back to school, which is really hard for a lot of children.
Yeah.
But when you're highly sensitive, going back to school is a big deal, right? We deal with a lot of emotions. We deal with what if this, what if that. And in the second book, I love that we are now continuing that journey of everything that he learned in the first book and now applying those things in the second book. So this is the second book, Tomás Goes to Oliver's house, a story of resilience. And in this story, again, we see how Tomás works through his emotions with Oliver, his friend, and is able to have an amazing day regardless of those big feelings that he has.
So both books are available in Spanish and in English. This is the Spanish one. Tomás va a la casa de Oliver. I'm just so excited to see the second book, which comes out August
8th. So very
8th?
Soon, yes.
Very soon, very, very soon. Sio, I would also love to just understand more about you as you were a career woman, you spent a while in corporate, and after having baby, your first baby, you decided to pivot from career to full-time mom. I know this is also like an area that's very important to you as you kind of support moms from a health and wellness perspective. Tell us more about that, decision, which is often very difficult for women to say, I'm going to set my career aside because to me, I want to raise my children and I want to be there with my children. What was that like for you? Tell us more about that side of you.
I was in the corporate world for many years, as were you. And, everything changed once I had my first son. I knew that I wanted to be with him full time. I didn't want to leave him in the care of someone else at such a young age. I would have had to leave him at 3 months old. And I just couldn't bear the thought of doing that. And thankfully, we were able to do that as a family. We were able to afford, I could stay home while my husband worked. And it was very difficult, though. I knew in my heart that it was the right decision, but I thought that the corporate CEO was who I was. And to step away from that role was really difficult because I had graduated, right, with a degree. That's what you plan, right? You plan, you get your college degree, you're going to work, and that's it. But this was more important for me right now. And thankfully, again, not everyone has the opportunity to do that, but we were. And so I stayed home with him. but it was a really difficult time for me because now I had to switch who I thought I was to being home all the time with my son and a new mom. I knew nothing about taking care of a baby. And my husband was traveling. So he was, an executive traveling half of the year. He was gone. So I was doing a lot of it on my own and afraid to ask for help. I was a lot younger and I wanted to do it all on my own too, which was, looking back at it, I'm like, no, you needed to ask for help. So if you are a new stay-at-home parent, ask for help.
Yes.
It's not weakness. It is not that you are less than, but we need that help so that we can take a break because we're going to burn out. And that's what happened to me. I burnt out. I was just exhausted, depressed, anxious. I was just not in a happy place. And until I found the wellness community. And I think, I don't remember the exact moment, but I knew that I needed to do something. And I guess I was just scrolling online and I found a wellness community, something about working out from home. And I saw other people, other moms doing the same thing. I said, you know what, let me try this. And I found that and I stuck with it. That was my personal goal. It wasn't a huge goal, right? But it was something that I needed at the time, so that I could let go of the resentment I was feeling too. I was feeling resentful towards my husband or jealous of other women who were still active or, working outside of the home. And I think it was a different time back then too, when did I have my first son? 2011, where it was almost, or at least I felt ashamed to say that I was staying at home. I think now it's different because everyone's working from home. But I was so ashamed to say that I was home with my child too. So that I was also impacting my health, right? So I found the wellness community. I started sharing what I was doing, my workouts, and I started to get a lot of comments about, well, what are you doing? I feel the same way. How can you help me? And I started helping other moms, other women with their own wellness journeys. And that kind of set me on the path to really feeling like I was okay being a stay-at-home mom when I had that extra, side hustle or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we think we can't do something else. But we can if we really set time aside for it, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes a day to work on whatever it is that you want to do on the side. It is possible. So the shift was very difficult for me, but I'm thankful for the wellness community, which is, I think, how I was able to get past all of those challenges early on.
And I thank you so much for sharing that. I know that, again, this is a very difficult decision for women who are career focused, but then, that shifts once they have their first child. And, it's important to understand that we should all own our stories, not comparing ourselves to what others may be doing, understanding how we can help ourselves, how we can ask for help, find those communities. One of the things that I love about social media is those communities that you can find, right?
Yes.
Those communities that are curated based on what you may be needing at the moment, what you may be looking for. So the way that you unlocked mental health and wellness through physical health and wellness, and now you're a huge advocate, and so inspiring to see you spread these messages, because not, obviously exercising, focusing on mental health, taking time for yourself every single day, so important to just keep, no matter what you're doing in life, if it's full-time working or full-time mom or managing both, it's important to take the time for ourselves and ask for help and seek that community.
Another thing that I remember too was I never had a babysitter. I never had anyone that would come and, take care of us while my mom did something else. And I can only imagine the struggle that she must have been going through, not having time for herself. And I've never asked her, but maybe I should, right? Before, I can't speak to her anymore, but get some background on what she must have felt
Yeah.
because I think she was a stay-at-home mom at one point,
Yeah.
or she had she worked retail for a little while before she got her degree. But I'm sure she must have been going through the same thing, right? The struggles of not having help. So
Yeah.
ask for help.
Ask for help.
It's okay.
Yeah. And now that I look at my mom, I remember when she was my age. I'm 44 now, but I'm like, wow, when my mom was 44, I was in my 20s, and I wonder what she was going through in the workplace, at home. I often think about like my tias, my grandma, my mom, and at that age, what was it like for them? Because at least for us, we have social media, we find community, we kind of have a way of helping ourselves if we want to. But for them, it was not the same.
Yes.
In the 70s, 80s, 90s, not the same. Not a lot of resources. So I have tremendous compassion for those women that grew up without the resources that you and I
Yes.
now have.
Yes.
Sio, I would love to also, one of the things that caught my attention as you were talking about your journey from corporate to full-time mom, it was like that constant calling for you to do something, to create. I think it's such an innate part of us as women. We're constantly wanting to create. And as a stay-at-home mom, obviously you created this amazing book series and so much more. What is your advice for women who may be staying home or maybe in the corporate environment and have that feeling of like, I want to do something different. I want to create something. What is your advice for those women?
My advice for a stay-at-home parent or someone who is looking to have that creative outlet is, first, be kind, be gentle with yourself, and be patient. Because some days are going to be wonderful. You'll feel like a rock star. And other days you're going to feel overwhelmed and drained and feel stuck and feel like nothing is moving forward. But if you really have a desire and you're inspired to do something, whether it's a creative project or a business plan or a personal goal like I started with when I had my first child, set the time aside for that. Make space for it. Even, like I said, if it's 20 minutes a day, if it's getting up a little earlier before everyone else, which is what I advocate for all the time. It doesn't have to be 5 a.m. It could be 6:30, right? Whatever your schedule is, get up a little bit earlier before anyone else so you have that quiet time to dedicate to it. And I promise you that those little moments will add up to something. And trust your voice, trust your story, share your story, whatever it is, especially for us as Latinos, our stories matter. And you never know the impact that your words will have on someone's life. And if they are spoken from the heart, if it is your truth, those words will find the people that need them.
Just like the creative outlet for you was writing this book, this podcast is my creative outlet. And I love your journey. I am such a fan of everything that you're doing. I hope that this leads you to so many more books, and that manuscript that you have, you need to dust it off and bring it up because you have a natural gift for these things. And I applaud what you're doing for our community, what you're doing for children, for parents, for women. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I'm so happy and I'm so excited for the launch on August 8th. I wish you the best. And hopefully we can have a second conversation and more conversations to come.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. And I appreciate the time. Congratulations on your podcast. I think what you're doing as well is amazing. This platform for us to bring amazing guests to share their journeys and share their story, I think is wonderful. So thank you. I'm excited for the new book. I'm excited for what's to come. And if anyone has questions or comments, they can reach me online.
Share your contact information.
So you can reach me on Instagram at The Inspired Fit Mama, Facebook Xiomara Gallego-Bernard. I have a website for the book. It's Xiomara Gallego-Bernard.com.
Yes.
And you can read more about Tomás there, his journey, and updates, any updates on the new book, events. You can download a lot of activity sheets for your kids. There's a lot of free downloads that you can do. And again, just thank you. Thank you to everyone for the support. And I look forward to another conversation.
Yes, everyone, mujeres, madres, padres, go and buy Tomás Goes to Oliver's House. Tomás Returns to School, available in Spanish and English. These are just beautiful books to have around, and obviously a beautiful tool for our children, for our parents. So go and check it out. Xiomara, thank you again.
Thank you
for
much.
being part of the Mujeres Create community.
Thank you,
Xio. Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and don't forget to share the wisdom with other mujeres.